वदनी कवळ घेता नाम घ्या श्रीहरीचे सहज हवन होते नाम घेता पुकाचे जीवन करी जीवित्वा अन्न हे पूर्ण ब्रह्म उदर भरण नोहे जाणीजे यज्ञ कर्म वदनी कवळ घेता नाम घ्या श्रीहरीचे सहज हवन होते नाम घेता पुकाचे जीवन करी जीवित्वा अन्न हे पूर्ण ब्रह्म उदर भरण नोहे जाणीजे यज्ञ कर्म. While taking a mouthful of food, chant the name of God. The food is easily offered as an offering to the divine yajna when God's name is uttered. The food gives life to us as it invites us to become one with the ultimate principle, Brahman. The purpose of eating food is not just to fill the belly, but it is a means to create a sacrificial ritual of yajna in your stomach, in your belly. Jai Jai Raghuveer Samartha. Jai Jai Raghuveer Samartha. Jai Jai Raghuveer Samartha.
We are all refugees severed from the land, disconnected from the genius that comes by being in symbiotic relationship with it. Yet rarely do we see the sustainability of our world analysed by the indigenous peoples whose patterns still flow with the movement of the earth. Lift your left hand. This represents a page or a screen. Now raise your right. The gaps between your fingers are the cultures and knowledge of First Peoples. These provide the lens through which to read, a book written from stories drawn in the sand. It's not a report on Indigenous knowledge from a global perspective, but rather an examination of global systems from an Indigenous perspective. Sand Talk is my contribution to a discussion we desperately need to have.
What did you think of that video? I loved it. Tyson doesn't like it so much. At least in hindsight. He resists the idea of being exoticized and commodified. But his publisher was persuasive enough. Life is riddled with such tensions, and so is Tyson's book. Orality versus the written word. The sin of I am greater juxtaposed with scathing critique of the Western other. The observation that everything changes, set against the notion of a permanent universal law of First Peoples. Maybe the book resonates because the ability to live with contradictions is partly, or should I say largely, what makes us human. William Chittick and Sachiko Murata framed the entire Islamic scholarly tradition as an enduring, unresolved tension between God's transcendence and God's immanence. I remember a conversation with Dr. Sharif Nasr. He doesn't know what I'm going to say, though he's hesitating before he takes his next bite. It was a long time ago, and I expressed my discomfort with a contradiction that was staring us in the face. And he said to me, and it was pretty much in this tone, at least how I remember it, "Come on, Mahan, I am 42. I can live with contradictions." I don't know if you... He's nodding. In New Haven, Connecticut, yes. There were 4 criteria that guided the selection process for the Nasr Book Prize. Allow me to state each of these criteria and then read a brief excerpt from the book that relates to it, to show you how it won. Somebody was asking earlier, how did we choose the book? So let me just add that we had over 30 submissions through an open process. Some of the books were formidable, like excellent winners in any other category. But we were looking for something that was unique. And we had a steering committee, and we narrowed it down first to a final 5. And then we read all the 5, and we unanimously selected this book. The first criterion: the book must speak from a normative and authentic voice that aspires to be representative of a major religious or wisdom tradition, recognizing that all traditions are internally diverse and constantly evolving. That was the first criterion. So I'm going to read from the book now. Quote, I can't participate in this one-sided dialogue between the occupiers and the occupied. For a start, I'm not Manth Thayan, someone who can speak for cultural knowledge. I'm a younger sibling, so that role is not available to me in our custom. I can speak from the knowledge, but not for it or about all the details. However, I can talk about the processes and patterns I know from my cultural practice, developed within my affiliations with my home community and other Aboriginal communities across the continent, including Nyungar, Mardi, Nungar, and Kuri peoples. Our knowledge endures because everybody carries a part of it, no matter how fragmentary. If you want to see the pattern of creation, you talk to everybody and listen carefully. Authentic knowledge processes are easy to verify if you are familiar with that pattern. Each part reflects the design of the whole system. If the pattern is present, the knowledge is true. Whether the speaker is wearing a grass skirt or a business suit or a school uniform. So I turn the lens around. I'm not reporting on Indigenous knowledge systems for a global audience's perspective. I'm examining global systems from an Indigenous knowledge perspective. The symbols that follow help to express this core concept as a hand gesture. And then you see the gesture. A reader might understand the physical gesture as a living text by mimicking this image, with the left hand sideways with closed fingers, representing a page or a screen, print-based knowledge in general, and the right hand with fingers spread out like a rock art stencil, representing the oral cultures and knowledge of First Peoples. You don't really get the effect until you do it. You see the difference of seeing through the hand, whereas you can see nothing through except the text with this hand. So the perspective is much broader. The gesture involves placing the splayed hand in front of the eyes, providing the lens through which to view the closed hand. This is the basic perspective we will use in this book. To avoid losing it in a void of print, I have built every chapter on oral cultural exchanges, a series of yarns with diverse peoples who all make me uncomfortable. I yarn with those people because they extend my thinking more than those who simply know what I know. Some of them I'll name, but many would rather not be captured in print and pinned down to a particular moment of thought, preferring to dwell privately in the generative cultural practice of yarning. Yarns are like conversations, but take a traditional form we have always used to create and transmit knowledge. For each chapter, I carve the logic sequences and ideas arising from these yarns into traditional objects before I translated them into print. It's the practice of doing knowledge. The ideas were carved on traditional objects, and the thoughts germinated. And that's what the book is, an attempt to translate that onto text. I have done this to prevent my oral cultural perspective from becoming fragmented and warped as I write. End quote. So this was, he taught us. and is deeply rooted. He's not writing about another culture, but he's embedded in a culture, and he's living it, and he's sharing from that perspective. So Sand Talk is grounded in a tradition of wisdom that emanates from deep history. It is representative and normative. Criterion One, check. The second criterion: the winning book must be conversant with current ways of knowing about the world. In other words, the book must be academically informed, or at least not academically naive. So I'm going to read again. There are many English words to describe our first peoples, and since none of them is entirely appropriate or accurate, I randomly cycle through most of them, each of which is somebody's preferred term and somebody else's offensive label. Before European occupation, we just called ourselves people in our own languages. But because I'm not speaking for any single language group, I use many of the inadequate English terms when I need to refer to us collectively. I use many other terms that I don't particularly like, such as dreaming, which is a mistranslation and misinterpretation. Because a lot of the old people I respect and who have passed knowledge on to me use these words. That's why he uses dreaming, but he doesn't particularly like it. It's not my place to disrespect them by rejecting their vocabulary choices. I know and they know what they mean, so we might as well just use those labels. In any case, it is almost impossible to speak in English without them, unless you want to say supra-rational interdimensional ontology endogenous to custodial ritual complexes every 5 minutes. So, dreaming it is. I'm going to omit the rest of this quote, but I think you get the idea. So, the book clearly met the second criterion. It is neither academically unsophisticated nor naive. Check. The third criterion is that the book must engage one or more contemporary issues in global affairs, providing new ways to understand existing problems or identifying novel solutions to already well-defined problems. So I'll read. I have been to many conferences and talks about Indigenous knowledge and sustainability, and have read numerous papers on the topic. Most carry the same simplistic message. First peoples have been here for X thousand years. They know how to live in balance with this place, and we should learn from them to find solutions to sustainability issues today. We should learn from them. And then in brackets he adds, I often wonder whom we refers to in this statement. Then they offer some isolated examples of sustainable practices, pre-colonization, and that's it. The audience is left wondering, yes, but how? What insight does this offer today for the problems we are experiencing now? We rarely see global sustainability issues addressed using Indigenous perspectives and thought processes. We don't see econometrics models being designed using Indigenous pattern thinking. Instead, we are shown a dot painting and implored to make sure we include Indigenous employment in our plans to double a city's population sustainability within a couple of decades. Any discussion of Indigenous knowledge systems is always a polite acknowledgement of connection to the land rather than true engagement. It is always about the what and never about the how. So that was criterion 3. Attempt to engage global issues. Check. And the last criterion, I don't have a quote for it because it was the book should have been published ideally within the past 5 years. And earlier works in our award series, we would accept if they deserve recognition on an exceptional basis. And so the book was published in 2020. And that was that. Sand Talk met all the criteria for the Nasser Book Prize. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Anantanand Rambachan to say a few words about the selection from his perspective. Dr. Anantanand is a professor of religion at St. Olaf College. He's the co-president of Religions for Peace in the United States, and he is one of the world's foremost authorities in Hindu philosophy, ethics, liberation theology, and interreligious dialogue. Dr. Rambachan is also a member of the steering committee that selected the winning book. Please welcome Anant.
Thank you very much, my friend Mahan. Greetings, brothers and sisters. I am most grateful for the opportunity as a member of the NASA Book Prize Selection Committee to offer just a few brief words on this very special occasion. I join with each of you in offering my deepest congratulations to Dr. Tyson Yunkaporta, our first NASA Book Prize winner, for his work, Sand Talk: How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World. I wish also to join in expressing gratitude to Drs. Sharif and Randa NASA for their generosity in making this award and our celebratory gathering possible. Over the past days, we have had enriching conversations, yarnings, dialogues with Tyson, responding and engaging his work from a variety of traditions and perspectives. These deep conversations will continue tomorrow, so I will not comment on the rich content of this work. I want to make one point about this book this evening. For me, Tyson's work is a powerful response to the legacy and the ongoing project of colonialism. It is truly difficult to estimate the continuing impact of colonialism on all of us. It has entered deeply into our ways of thinking, our ways of acting, into the structures of the communities and nations in which we live. This legacy is most evident in the persistence of colonial anthropologies, cosmologies, epistemologies, those that have sought to displace indigenous ones. Indigenous cosmologies, and I am most familiar with the ones in my Hindu tradition, are based on reverence, are based on reciprocity, and our human obligations to honor and to care for trees, for water, for earth, for rocks, for all living beings. The ideology of colonialism, on the other hand, is one that prioritized profit maximization, subjugation, and reckless exploitation, disregard for sustainability. Rivers, trees, mountains, honored in indigenous cosmologies as life-giving gods and goddesses, were desacralized, instrumentalized, disconnected, or at least thought of as disconnected from the web of life, rapaciously plundered in greed. This is the legacy of colonial ideology. And sadly, many of our religious traditions were complicit in providing theological justifications for that kind of reckless exploitation. Colonial cosmologies are radically dualistic, advancing sharp dichotomies between human beings and the rest of the world. Human beings who came from colonial nations were the ones who were rational, privileged, superior. Everyone and everything else, categorized as nature, served as instruments for colonial ends. This hierarchical dualism was reflected intellectually in sharp dichotomies between the worlds of mind and matter, Descartes, the realms of spirit and body, the spiritual and the physical. Nature became the realm of mortality and change, while spirit is accorded a higher value because it is regarded as immortal and unchanging. In colonial religious cosmologies, the creator is transcendentally separate from creation, contributing to its desacralization and the right of human control and exploitation. The sources of our contemporary predicament are many, and as Tyson himself writes, should not be simplified. But colonial cosmologies are fundamental sources of the structures that are so oppressive to this earth, and especially to indigenous communities. And there's no escaping that fact. Decolonization, therefore, is fundamental to the work of saving the world, and indigenous ways of thinking and acting, as articulated in Dr. Yunkaporta's work, is crucial to this process of decolonization and offering the wisdom that we need for saving our world. Colonial worldviews have distorted what it means to be human, disconnecting us from each other, instrumentalizing our value to each other, and irrationally severing us from creation. Indigenous worldviews invite us to rediscover what it means to be human in the sacred web of life. And so, Dr. Tyson, for your contribution to decolonizing our minds, inviting us to think differently, radically differently, to self-critically look at ourselves as we do not usually do, to stand apart and examine the structures that we have inherited and the structures that control our lives. We are grateful. And we are honored to have you as the first recipient of the NASA Book Prize. Congratulations.
At this point, I'd like to welcome Dr. Carolyn T. Brown and Dr. Tyson Yunkaporta to the stage. Dr. Brown is the board chair at the Fetzer Institute, and she formerly served as director of the John W. Kluge Center at the Library of Congress. She was also a member of the steering committee that unanimously voted in favor of Sand Talk. Instead of a keynote address, we have planned a keynote yarn between Tyson and Carolyn. During our steering committee meeting to select the winning book, Carolyn, who holds a PhD in literature and an MA in Chinese literature, observed that she couldn't quite figure out what genre to fit the book in. I hope that this conversation will enlighten us. Carolyn and Tyson, the stage is yours.
Okay. So I have to say, the other speakers in the series were invited to write papers, and no one asked me to write a paper but to do a yarn. And that meant when I arrived, neither Mahan nor Charles Powell knew what I was going to say, right? And having been a manager and administrator in a bureaucratic institution, you always want to know what the guest is going to say, right? So what I had thought was going to be a private conversation with Tyson to just talk about some of the questions and whatnot, we were invited to do a more kind of public up within the group. And I evidently passed. I think I passed, right? But I say that because I almost feel like apologizing to Tyson in that I'll be saying, but not entirely, some of the things we talked about before, because this is a different audience. But you also know that if it's a different audience, a different time, we've been listening to the conversations, it's going to be different. And this is a special statement for the dean. I want you to know that Mahan is a magic maker. Because last night, as my husband and I were walking back with Tyson, we had this conversation, which was I think, too generative. And Tyson at some point said, well, maybe, we could at some point find a chance to do some, on the ground. And I said, oh, why don't we have sand? And next thing I knew, Mahan had actually gone out and given us a sand table. And I will also note when we were talking,
You have 2
Tyson,
wishes left.
only 2 wishes left? Oh, I know that you always say I wish that all my wishes would come true, and then the ground covers it. But as we were talking in our sort of pre-conversation, Tyson was frequently going, making motions on the table. So I don't know whether you'll want to play in the sand, but it's here and it's sand talk and we're talking and there's the sand. The other thing I wanted to say by way of preliminaries is one of the things that that struck me was it was hard for you to accept my comment when I said I love this book. This is a book that, yes, it helps us see another worldview, and it does have some zingers, and I'll go back and talk about the language a little bit. But it's a book that comes out of love and compassion and hope. And that was a little uncomfortable for Tyson because, as you know, if you've read the book, the attack on narcissism and self-regard is really, really strong. So I just wanted to say this to you, that I recognize, and I think all of us here recognize that whatever our gifts or contributions, there are legions who stand behind us. There are ancestors. There are all the things in the land that nurtured us, the spiky creatures you talked about, but we are nourished and brought to this particular moment in time. And we will vanish and others will be the inheritor of that. So when we accept your gift, we know it's a gift of a long line of ancestors and others. And you're in this moment to bring that forth. And who knows who will make of it. So don't feel bad. That's the mother in me. Don't feel bad. Please, just don't feel bad. Mahan indicated that when we were, the selection committee was talking about the book, I think I didn't actually say I couldn't figure out where to put it in genre because it didn't fit in the genre. And I had the sense that it was a different way of thinking, requires a different kind of form. You know that ideally in a book you have the author, you have the reader, and you have the purpose of the book, and the form of the book needs to embody and express the intent of the book. And so that in order for one of the things I was thinking, Tyson, is that if it were an Indigenous person communicating to another Indigenous person, you wouldn't write a book. Probably, you wouldn't write a book. You would do it some other way. But has attempted to write from within that worldview and bring it to us, but in our medium, our academic medium. And there's another medium we didn't even talk about, which this represents. So we have, and every medium has its strengths. But anyway, so the genre was really interesting to me because of the intent. And we said this, you heard this before, but I want you to hear it in this context of the intent to write from within a culture. I am not reporting on Indigenous knowledge systems for a global audience's perspective. I am examining global systems from an Indigenous knowledge perspective. And that requires a different genre, a different format. Otherwise, the genre is not true to the intent. So, we've talked about the hand gestures. I don't think we need to do that again unless you want to, but that was fun.
Well, you're probably starting to see a formula to ancient wisdom. It's just pretty much reversing something. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that movie Mystery Men. but there's a Native American superhero in that, and his superpower is that he's very wise. And so he's always saying things like, if you don't learn to master your rage, then rage will become your master. And I don't know. It wasn't until after the book was published that I looked at some of the things that I'd been writing that sounded wise and thought, oh, that's because I'm doing that. I saw it on TV one night and thought, oh my goodness, am I doing that?
You are doing
I
that.
am doing that.
Yes.
But it's amazing how many times it is wise. Like there's an answer in that if you flip it around the other way.
Well, when I hit that phrase, domesticated humans, I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
Or you heard this, but maybe it was embedded in so much language. The country the continent that is currently called Australia,
Oh yeah.
and that the first sentence, which I just love. I made you read it before, but I think you should read it again. You've heard it, but you need to hear it in this context. Just read the first sentence.
Okay.
I love it.
Only I can't. I went blind on lockdown, all the Zoom meetings,
Oh, okay.
and I can't read it. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll read it with your permission. Oh.
Like anyone's glasses will do. I've done that
Oh, okay.
before, just called out for glasses from the audience. There we go. Okay.
But that's the spontaneity of yarning, right?
Sometimes I wonder if echidnas ever suffer from the same delusion that many humans do, that their species is the intelligent center of the universe.
Right. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you probably have to do that if you want to become comfortable with insane contradictions. That is reality.
Well, the contradictions,
Like Mahan was mentioning before.
right? And the capacity to try to see yourself from the outside, which you don't. It's not easy to do it. Most of the time, we don't really like what we might see, but it's necessary. But if we move to, I know we pointed to the movement from oral to written, and I know you didn't like those categories, but I think it's useful because you've created a hybrid genre to say just a little bit about that, because I found out in preparing it for this, there's a lot of, I don't know, literature about that process. But I think that the thing that's most important is that those media are different. The written and the oral, they have different powers, different strengths, and they're just pointers, each to a whole complex. And I know you didn't like the terms, so I don't know if you want to say something about their limitation.
Yeah, I'm happy to look from any perspective. I think if I wasn't me and I was looking at that book, I would call it hipster pop science, anarcho-communist propaganda, self-help satire. Like it's all those things, but it's not too. It was a lot bigger, by the way.
It was.
Like when I first wrote it, there's just a lot that had to be cut. It had to be very trimmed.
Yeah.
In order to be marketable.
That's publishers. And I have to say, because you're
Yeah.
too nice to say this.
Yeah.
But you said it the first night I met you. And all of us should have suspected this if we read the book. And I'm ashamed to say I didn't. That phrase, how indigenous thinking can save the world, Tyson didn't think that up.
No.
That was the publisher.
Yeah.
He's selling books. He's selling books.
Very clever. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very clever. But maybe we can say something about what the things you did, the things you invented and created in order to try to move from within your culture into a sort of alien form so that the reader could get a sense of what that sort of oral culture was like.
Well, that's the trick. How do you speak from within it to people outside of it who might be hostile to it? how do you do that without standing outside of it and talking about it, Because that's what most of us have to do as Indigenous academics, writers. When you engage with the academy in that way, you have to step outside of your culture in order to explain it to people. And ironically, a lot of the tools we have for that, the decolonizing methodologies and things like our standpoint theory that's supposed to be about centering our voices, the post-structuralist stuff, deconstructivist stuff, the postmodern sort of thing, it's all abstractions, and it kind of forces us, while we're claiming a standpoint and trying to move that standpoint into the center, and we all know where that is. That's not in our community.
Right.
We step outside of ourselves and we have to inhabit, I don't know. We just sort of have to hover around the edges of ourselves like a ghost and then describe to people what we see or what we'd like them to think is there. And it's not always accurate, and it is always difficult. It fractures a person. But I was like, no, what if I just stood right in it and I didn't move? And I wasn't interested in the center. What if I just stood there? And what if I just did all my things, which I have all my things? I've got all these yarns. How would I do that? Writing it.
So I love at one point you said, and this speaks to that tension, that you found you used the word, what was it, neocolonialism? No, it was a different word.
Neoliberalism.
Neoliberalism, more than you use the word turtle or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
But I have a solution. I remember I warned you that we were going to do some slides, but I just thought we'd just look at one, which is
Okay.
your table of contents.
Okay.
And this table of contents occurs in maybe the second chapter, first chapter. And when it shows up, you don't understand what it means. And by the time you get to the end of the book, you understand why it's a table of contents. So maybe you need to turn around and look so you see what's up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Dr. Yunkaporta, could you explain for us your table of contents?
Well, you see, there was a turtle pattern, in this void. There was a turtle entity, and there was an echidna entity, and they were fighting, and the echidna entity smashed the smooth, hard back of the turtle entity right in the center, and it sort of cracked out into this fractal. It just went out like from there, and it went out in like the Fibonacci sequence, which is really cool when you hear the old fellas like telling you the numerical sequence for how it works. It's like 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and you're like, oh my goodness. Anyway, and so that just sort of formed the fabric, like the blueprint upon which creation could happen. That wasn't like all of creation. That was just a good, because those hexagons just go out forever in that sort of fractal, pattern and continues out. That sort of things can start forming on that little matrix there. Yeah, that's just kind of like that.
So each little hexagon,
Yeah.
hexagram, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah.
So look, that's
Take one of them and
okay,
explain how it works.
Well, that's that story I just said there.
Okay,
Yeah, that one, which is, it's cheating really because the whole chapter thing is built on that.
right. But choose
And
another one and show
yeah,
how it.
well, there's a few of them that's Old Man Joma's symbols, and then there's a few of them that are like those 5 different ways of thinking there. So this one here is that's the idea of pattern mind, pattern thinking, and that's I mean, you can do that yourself. It's just you're doing them that way, and then you're doing them that way, and then you're just allowing that to continue. And there's all these amazing. You can start mapping the land, mapping country like that. Yeah, and you'll be amazed what you see when you're finished. filling up the entire space.
Can you make that more specific? You're talking about it in a very general way.
Yeah.
Can you give us a...
Oh, it's really difficult to zoom in from there, but I can hear my son screaming too. That's another thing.
part of the context?
Yeah. Well, it references like a way of thinking, which is recognizing that all things in creation are in relation, and being able to see the pattern of that, being able to step back and not just triangulate, but polyangulate from many, many data sets, incomplete data sets, but to do that in collaboration with the other people around you. So you're not just one little brain thinking about it, but all your minds together, moving through the landscape, noticing these things, rejecting that sign, accepting this sign, and starting to form an aggregate of what's going on. So, you can locate where the groundwater is, for example, or find where kangaroos are sort of nesting in the middle of the day. Yeah. It's being able to do predictive modeling really in real time, just by being able to think through an entire system. That doesn't mean we're not reductive too, because then once you find the kangaroos, you get real reductive, like really quick, because you got to hit them there with this tiny little thing. You get very reductive then. But I guess it's what people call holistic thinking.
Holistic.
Yeah, but it's pattern thinking, and it's not just pattern recognition. Like, it's a difference between pattern thinking and patternicity. Patternicity is that thing that a lot of evolutionary biologists are talking about now. Patternicity, where people sort of see patterns that aren't there. They'll see correlations that aren't really there, and then imagine that they're causations, and then go, oh my God, Hillary Clinton has children on that ship. We've got to stop her. And that's that patternicity, but that's not what we're doing with pattern thinking. Pattern thinking is very rigorous, and we do it together, and there are a lot of checks and balances, and lots of peer review as you go.
You had actually, speaking of peer review,
Yeah.
a wonderful, it's just a little short, couple of lines about, and I probably won't get this right, but you'll remember it more exactly. The I'll just call wise elder, but I don't know if he was actually an elder, who was out and predicted that with a group of children, I think, and that in 12 minutes it was going to rain, and in 12 minutes it's rained. Now that's peer review from the universe or nature or whatever you want to call it.
He's got non-human peers.
Non-human peers.
Talking to him, yeah.
Yeah.
Including the flying ants and the trees, the wind, the 1,000 signals. But that's what an elder does. That's why they have authority. And that's one of the things we talked about, was that difference between power and authority. So your elders aren't your boss, but they have that authority. And if they tell you, we see the bugs crawling up the riverbank, we should move to high ground. You listen to them, because, you don't have to do what they say. You can stay there and drown when the floodwaters come up, but you probably want to follow them up on the ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually remembering, you may remember this, the major flood in Indonesia, what is this, 15 years ago? From a underground earthquake.
Oh, yeah.
And the animals headed to high ground.
Yeah.
And the people were, well, I think probably the local people headed up the hills, but the tourists, you don't notice. And one of the things that sort of struck me with your book is that if I had to live in the way you're able to live, in any wilderness, you could give me one with a lot of, green and vegetables, I wouldn't be able to do it. And I'm that disconnected from the land. And, just to note that. And I love when you said this earlier this afternoon, that tension of having to live in the city when you really want to be out in the bush. And the remarkable thing, you could do that.
You could do that too, because your role, that would mean that you'd be looked after.
Oh, right, but I couldn't do it on my own.
You'd have
I'd
a
be looked at, I'd be taken
status
care of.
where you had other work, which you could quite easily and
Yeah.
do like very, very well, and you'd be looked after. Yeah,
You better watch out because I might come visit you.
yeah. Because look, it's not being out in the bush is not Bear Grylls survival stuff. Anyone can do that on their own, but then what can you do that 40 years, 50 years, and then die on your own? It sounds awful.
Sounds awful.
No, it has to be a community, but then you can't have an isolated community living in the land as well because they will die. They'll die out.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, it has to
earlier.
be connected. You have
Yeah.
to be a network of communities. And you do well in that. Everybody would.
So one of the things about other things about the genre that sort of struck me about this as I looked at talked about a little bit about the chapters, but one of our respondents at the end of a very sensitive paper, I thought, did talk about the longing we in the West have been trained to have for logical argument, and it set me thinking about what is the nature of the argument, quote, in these chapters. And literary people sometimes talk about an argument, but it struck me, and I did say this to you before, that each chapter is structured like a poem, and there are multiple pieces that respond in interconnection. And I wondered what you thought about it and what you thought about the pieces and how did they arise for you? We know about the boomerang, and not all the objects that were boomerangs. There were other things, I think, that you carved as you were sort of working through. But each chapter has a kind of, well, why don't you describe it? Why should I describe it? I'm doing all the work here.
Well, the chapters are carved. The chapters aren't written. They're carved initially, of course, they're yarned and walked and sung on country. And I told you a little bit more about that albino boy chapter. And there were other things carved for that as well, and ceremony that happened on country. And I did sing that song for you as well. So there are a lot of things there that just aren't in there because that's cultural content and it's not what we were doing. But it's I don't know. It's finding a thread through trying to intuit as soon as you say us two, I'm imagining a relation, and then I'm trying to meet the obligations of that relationship, and I'm sharing things with that person, with the kind of placefulness,
Playfulness?
lacefulness.
Okay.
So I'm imagining part of that song line, or that place where I'm walking with that person, and I'm imagining walking with you there, and I'm thinking the best of you here as a reader. I'm imagining you to be a very switched on, compassionate, deadly person. Which with the next book, I'm imagining all kinds of people because I met some of these ones now, since the book happened. And there's I don't know, there's one woman who claims we're secretly married or something. There's like weird people, there's stalkers. And the book did, the book did fairly well, but not well enough to have a secure enough house from some of the weirdos that are out there and get stalking you. So on the next book, I've imagined very different. When I was writing this, I just imagined the best kind of person reading it that I could think of, and what I would show you if I was walking, what I would have permission to show you, what I'd steer you away from. And I just kind of navigate a path through there, and I'm sitting there with the object and just downloading from that all of the yarns and the places and the ceremonies. And and then just translating that into things. And that might be a joke or a poem or a bit of exposition or a rant. A rant?
Oh, rant.
I think I do a few rants there, or a story, or I don't know. Yeah, I just play around with different genres, I guess, and with different voices. Sometimes it's an academic voice. Sometimes I'm talking to you like you're my cousin. It's just kind of just switches around, depending.
But there's
I'm not sure on what.
because I think you have a pattern in your soul that is somehow shaping the things that you are pulling in, so that you may be experiencing it in the moment as sort of random, but the selection as the receiver is not random. It's very coherent, and that's, maybe I shouldn't say your soul, your belly, since you like to use that.
Yeah, I can't take all the credit for how that might work as a coherent text. That's old people. That's everyone else. I think. Yeah. I mean, I'm as a being, I'm just an expression of a web of relations, and that web of relations, it sort of steers you where you're supposed to go, and you might ignore it willfully, but
But
when you listen all right, there's things have coherence.
my experience is when you ignore it willfully, you get into big trouble.
Yeah. Well, I do that, and I get into big trouble all the time. Yeah.
But it's a great teacher. Big trouble is a great teacher. But Mahan said we have 5 minutes, and I want to talk about what was my favorite part of the book, or not maybe favorite is the wrong word. The part that touched me most deeply, because I've done a lot of analysis, and that's part. But the part that really reached inside of me and took me someplace else. You called it the dream walk. It's towards the end of the book. It's different. A lot of what you've done is you say something and you undercut it. And there's irony and layers and whatnot. And I see it as the moment when you gave permission for whatever is deepest in you to just come forward. And then, of course, his next chapter. But that part, and I just want to say, maybe I didn't do it the right way, because Tyson says you're supposed to, this part, it's about, I didn't count, 5 or 6 pages, very different. You should read it out loud to a group. I didn't read it out loud, and I didn't have anyone read it aloud to me, but as I read it, I tried to follow the meditation, through my body and through the images. And even though I wasn't doing it the way that would be the fullest impact, it really had a deep impact on me. And I didn't plan how we should do this, whether you want to read part of it, talk about it, whether I should read part of it. I love the only thing I would want you to read for sure is the last paragraph.
All right.
But
I was going to
how do you want to
say,
do it?
whatever we do, it has to be the end. We have to have the end at the end, because we can't just cut it off at some point and just leave them there. They might get stuck.
Right.
Yeah. 'Cause it's a journey. Oh my goodness.
So it's the last yellow sticky.
All right. The last yellow sticky.
It's the last yellow sticky.
Oh,
And I just
my
want to say, it's
goodness.
somehow, in some ways, it's a synthesis of all the themes, but in a way that just, well, you'll see.
I did I did this for young people that who needed some spiritual protection that I couldn't quite cover for them 24/7. We were out bush and staying in a bad place, and so I put this together for them to give them their own way, give them their own way of doing protection, basically to get their belly power up, and so that they would be protected. So so there was no messing around in here. There's no jokes.
No jokes.
Yeah, just the last bit there.
No, whatever you want to read from. I just don't want you to not read the last bit.
Yeah, all right.
The rest is your choice.
Okay.
It's all your choice, but anyway,
All right.
it's my preference.
Well, the 7 sisters are here, burning bright. All the hero ancestors are up here, Sky Camp, watching you, blazing that same fire again. Your rhythm is pulsing out to them. They're pulsing back, light washing through you in waves, stoking up that fire inside you again, blazing those coals, washing you clean and clear. Can your mind even extend up here? to the patterns in the endless night sky. Can your mind possibly perceive all of these stars, shapes, gaps, forms made by those gaps, the stories and morality and rich knowledge here, thousands of parts, all at once? Can it know every part at once? What it does hold for sure are the patterns created by all those parts. It sees objects pulled towards a space and knows what must lie there, out of sight. It's able to see the swirl and stories and patterns and angles and times and seasons all at once, to read the big patterns these show together, and therefore make predictions and judgments about land-based events, phenomena, weather, ritual, the naming of all things in your life throughout each cycle of seasons, the longer cycles of generations, and even longer cycles of deep time and story. What would it take to free your mind, to allow it to see these big patterns again? All the ancestors are up here, and they left their traces in the earth and waters below as well. And you carry those traces within, those memories and knowledges and deep, deep love. Those things wait for you below. They tug at you, begin to draw you down. You are no longer light, but not heavy either. You're in balance, and you return to your place of love below. You're a point of connection between the earth and sky camp. So go, be that. You drop, plummet through stars and darkness, and blue, black, and deep blue and light blue, and maybe clouds and water drops, tree tops, ceilings, and then softly, softly, softly settle back down to earth, into the feeling of your place and your body, the rhythm that never stops, the fire in your belly, your power, and the infinite potential of your mind, within and without. That's right, I remembered what that was for now.
Yeah.
That was to show people their mind is not just brain-bound. Yeah. And to be able to use that, yeah.
Yeah,
It was also what made Megan fall in love with me. She heard me doing that for some kids. And yeah, anyway, that's when Megan fell in love with me.
oh,
And
I can believe it.
yeah. And yeah, then she just grabbed me,
Smart
shook
woman.
me, like Grace Jones in Conan the Barbarian too.
Well, you seem to think that women are smarter than men, and this might be it.
Yeah, that's
Instead
it. Yeah,
of,
that doesn't make sense.
anyway, I think it's a wonderful book. That's a beautiful part. Is there anything more you would like to say here now in this special
Ah,
moment of love for you?
so many millions of things. I think we're out of time. It would
Oh,
have
we're
been
not
good
out of
to,
time. You're the guest. You can
would have been
say,
good to show you some things
sure.
here,
Can we do that?
but I don't know if that's
See,
it's
you're the guest. You can do what
doable
you
as
want.
a thing.
So show on sand?
Yeah, if you like. Can you project that on the thing, or will it take too long to work out the tech?
I want you to know there's this wonderful photo that Mahan sent me of Mahan. This was this morning with a bag of sand over his shoulder
Sweet.
from Home Depot.
Can you see it?
Oh crap.
Can you project? It's up there?
Yeah. All right. It looks like a pumpkin pie. Okay. Swiss. Oh man, that team. All right. Well, so I guess we start with that constellation we got in both of our hemispheres, eh? So it's that. So the Pleiades, seven sisters. Old man Juma, he shows it like this, with this sort of traveling in. There's that idea of seven spirit families, 7 sisters and 1 sister lost. And that she comes in, boom, to the center, and that's a big point of impact in creation. That point of impact, incidentally, is we've got absolutely no problem with saying, yeah, it was that, and it was an echidna hitting a turtle, and, going out fractally, Fibonacci sequence out into everything. There's more really cool maths that happens around the outside of the turtle shell as well. So it's that creation event. You might see that ends up making a hexagon there. But that one is also mother and child, which is the first kinship pair. It's always the first kinship pair. It's the first kinship pair in every religion, in every creation story. There's often a mother and child. There's also man, woman, but we'll get to that. But mother and child it's that one that you learn from. It's the first thing you learn everything from in your life. So everything, your society is not sustainable unless it's all built around that kinship pair. That needs to be the center of all things. So for a woman, there's a lot of responsibility there. And she has that conflict, of needing to be herself and also needing to be mother.
Yeah.
She has that conflict of relation, obligation, but then also the other side of the dyad, which is to be fabulous just for herself as well, which she often is. Yeah, but then once that splits, that forms this, so that 7 keeps coming through. So this is sunrise and sunset dreaming. There's that point of impact, that same one again, and at each of the points of nexus here, all those together, that makes up those 7 spirit families. And this sunrise and sunset dreaming, which is the protocol of embassy and the pattern for embassy. That's the governance, that's the law for embassy for all around. Wherever you go on the planet, you follow that sunrise, sunset dreaming out from your center here. But, yeah, there is that man-woman business going on. And so there's also Orion, because nothing's perfect. And with that Orion, there's that another one of something coming in, a point of impact at the center. But this is a triangle, and this is men's business, and it's that man divided against himself in the same way, and so that becomes this business here, and it's the 7 spirit families again, and things can go well and things can not. So the things can go the other way, depending on whether or not a man reconciles that individual need to be special against his relational obligations. And everything hinges on this. And so you get first man, first woman story. And there is that point of impact at the center of creation. And, out of that into that sort of matrix of turtle business, turtle pattern, things are formed. You might see that sunrise and sunset dreaming happening again. But there is a man, a first man, and a first woman. And they're coming out from this rock point of impact. And every country has a special place. Every small region will have a rock at the center or a special place at the center, which is that point of impact. So it's fractal, because that's that place's creation story. And also a continent. So in Australia, this is Uluru. And the idea is that those 7 spirit families came out from Uluru, and that's all the people in the world. And the idea is that it's like the universe breathes out and in. And from that point of impact, those 7 different tribes of people went all around the world, and that they'll come back home again. And they will come back to Australia, and they'll all be there at Uluru again, and the whole thing will start all over. So, oh my God, someone asked me if we had prophecies, and I said, no. That sounds like a prophecy. Oh, crap. So you don't listen to me? I don't know. No, we don't have prophecies. That's definitely a prophecy. That's definitely a prosperous. Okay, now I'm starting to think I might have ended up in a cult. Oh. All right. Anyway. Yeah, so this is the shape of the man's canoe. He's the first man, he's the first woman, and they travel, around these lines. They travel out and they come together and they go apart to do their separate men's and women's business from this point of impact. And that's the beginning of things there. That's his canoe. And this is and that's their lines of travel. Their lines of travel form other lines. So you end up with north and south, east and west, and he turns his canoe along those lines like a paddle. Like when you turn your canoe, it turns like that. And the seasons turn that way. And so the sun runs in that way. And so in this dreaming, there's no fixed north. It's different. The directions are different every day of the year, slightly, because it depends on that. So anyway, and from this you end up with that's place, but place and time are the same thing. And so there is a model. There's a model of time that comes out from those three generations of women around every child. And then that comes out again. These are also big ages that keep coming out, big eras of history, going from right back to the dreaming times I was talking about there, but then continuing. And Old Man Juma makes you lie down and look at it to do an ant view of that, because that shows country, and all the ridges and valleys. But this is how time works. And I did see that. I did see this about 10 years before I met Old Man. Like I saw it when I tried some of that San Pedro cactus trippy stuff by a river. And it's the only time I've ever done anything like that, and I'm never doing it again. But I did get a lifetime worth of work coming out of that one evening. And this was one of the things I saw. I didn't just see it. There was like 6 hours of this just going in and out like a big sort of fresh and then decaying meat flour. It was really disturbing to look at. And I had like 10 hours of labor pains to go with it. So I'm not ever going to forget that. So when Old Man like drew that in the sand for me, I went, oh, that's that thing. Now I have to do stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. So I could really go on for a long time with all those star story, but that's basically where the idea of time and place coming out of Sky Camp, coming out of that dreaming there. And I just kind of wanted to show you and Uncle Leah like a bit of a flow between the symbols.
Yeah.
For, that's connected with the star, with the astrophysics side of things. I just wanted to show you like a flow of story that where it connects all those together.
Yeah.
Because there is a continuity between all these things.
Well, I think we experience it, but can't say it.
Yeah.
And you can show it and we can feel it.
Yeah.
And maybe if we had enough time, we could analyze it, but I don't think so.
I don't
Maybe
think
with
so,
a poem.
Yeah,
We'd have to write our own poem.
Sorry, I'm just playing.
Yeah. But that's part of,
yeah.
You said this afternoon, you were talking about yarning, you talked about fun being part of it. And here's the fun, we forget the fun.
What's fun is that I mean, if I go to the Central Desert, I can't do this because it's only women who can do sand talk in the Central Desert.
And you won't tell.
Yeah. And apparently there was an old lady who like saw my book and went, sand talk? What's he doing? Does he have a vagina? He can't do that. Because in their place, it's like that. Yeah. In some places, it is like that. So if I go to the desert, I can't do that. But I have sat down with an old lady and she's shown me her things there from there, but she wouldn't let me touch that sand. No. It's like, no, this is just for us girls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that, I don't know, I answered that question here of the pattern thinking they asked me before that I didn't say it very well with my mouth.
Yeah, no, I think you did, and I think we have a glimpse,
Yeah.
just a glimpse, which is more than we had before, and we are deeply grateful. I am deeply grateful. I'm sure all of you are deeply grateful. And you, yeah, good.
It's even more like a pie
You can play later.
now. It looks even more like a pie now.
It's what?
It looks even more like
Like
a
a
pie.
pie.
Yeah.
Well, now we have to be serious, but maybe we'll leave the sand, and after we finish the serious part,
Mm,
you can play some more.
Well,
How's that?
Please stay. Please stay. Our evening is drawing to a close, and that was just remarkable. Especially, it shows how much we've learned from the book. Because I know that if I were listening to this talk, not having read the book, I would be completely lost. And so, if you haven't read the book, it really is. Oh, the mic was off. Are you? What I was saying was that if I hadn't read the book and I had listened to this conversation, I would be completely lost or, looking for what does this all mean. But if you've read the book, then it teaches you, it really introduces you to a whole culture and a universe that is worth knowing. But now that we know that the publisher has duped us, we can confer the award. So Tyson, I can't express how grateful we are to you and to Megan and to Edie and to Ani. She's here. Did she step out? And Diver for coming all the way from Australia to accept this award. On behalf of the Ansari Institute, it is my honor to present you with the Nasser Book Prize in Religion and the World, a cash prize in the amount of $20,000.
Oh, he's hey. Oh, Ramsay. Sorry. Turtle Island, you got a hug with your heart there and there.
Sorry.
Mm.
So we also have, wait, just a small gift.
So,
I'm going to say it so everyone can hear. You can take a look inside. So it's a blanket, but it's woven with fabric for the relations.
Oh, nice.
And yes, you can open it and show it.
Yeah.
And it's got places from around Notre Dame, but they're non-linearly, just placed on the fabric. So it's a bit like the table of contents for Notre Dame.
Nice.
And in there, we have embroidered your names. So
Who made this?
So we have Tyson
You all sat down
and Megan
and
and Onyx and Diver
oh my goodness.
and Eden, because you're now part of the Notre Dame story.
Hey. Yeah. Okay. Feel silly now with my little.
No. What do you mean?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Because that's huge. All right. This is for you, mine. Yeah, just everything you've done for us from the start. This was I just thought you'd appreciate the editing process. This is part of the editing process for Sand Talk. It was originally about that high. It was a big shield and a proper shield with a handle. That was where the handles were originally. Yeah, and I just kept editing it down. And every time, so there's like all this part was a chapter on Libya that I had to take out because it was all Russian propaganda. There was heaps of Russian propaganda. I didn't even know. It was just my YouTube algorithm. Anyway, I had a really good publisher who was very, very insistent that I remove the Gaddafi nostalgia and all the other no good bits. But that was the core business that I wanted to keep, the big stuff from Old Man Juma. And then a lot of, the stuff that was more what I had formulated from that is sort of at the center. And that's, it's a shield within a shield within a shield. And anyway, That's. I just thought you'd like the editing process. Hey.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a long explanation because it looks weird. It's a weird looking thing, but you appreciate it if you're
I love it.
nitpicky editor.
I think it's one of the best gifts, the best gift I've ever received.
Oh,
The one thing, very quickly, I know we're running over time, but when the steering committee selected Tyson's book, the one thing everyone said was, will he come? And so it was a dream for us that's beyond coming true. And this is so precious. Thank you.
All right. And this one's for Charles I. I don't know if he's still here.
Yes, there he is.
Yeah. There's Charles I, Charles II as well, because he was the second one we met. So you're Charles I. Yeah. Okay. So I've been madly trying to rub this. It's going to be even stickier because I dunked it in wax before I went just to make sure any creepy crawlies in there got choked out. Yeah. Yeah. And that's from my home. That's from my own country. That's one of the boomerangs there was 2 boomerangs from the displaced apostrophes chapter. Yeah. And while I've been sitting there madly polishing it, I've been trying to bring that story up about being comfortable with contradictions. Because the biggest contradiction there is just how scathing I am about English all the way through the book. And like, English doesn't, you haven't got enough words for things. You don't have enough pronouns. But then at the same time, if somebody leaves an apostrophe out, I will get wild. All my students hate me. It's all red ink through there. Yeah. So I'm a stickler for grammar and punctuation.
Well, thank you.
All right. Oh, here in my side. All right. And it goes straight. It does go straight. You could hit, those geese you got? Yeah. It doesn't come back. No, turn other way. No, other way. Jeez. No, that's the bit. Yeah. Okay. All right. And you can just throw that straight at a goose. One of those fat geese, and it'll just it won't turn. It'll knock it. You'll hit it straight. And
we are having too much fun.
You got goose. All right.
But my dean needs his beauty sleep. So please welcome the dean of the Keough School,
all right,
Scott Appleby. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahan. I am in the unenviable position of keeping you here for just a few minutes longer because I'm happy to conclude this evening with some words of thanks. First, let's thank those who prepared our meal and who will be helping clean after we leave. Please thank those folks. To all who prepared, hosted, and participated in the retreat, and for all of you participating in this 2-day symposium, thank you. A special word of thanks to our friends and supporters on the Ansari Institute Advisory Board who are present with us here tonight, including Chuck and Andrea Cotter. Want to stand up? Remember, wave. And Aza Karam, who we've already met. I don't know where Aza is, but thank you, Aza. And to Anantanand, Rambachan, and Carolyn Brown, who are our interlocutors in devising and implementing the Ansari Institute's strategic plan at the crossroads of religion. Thanks to you too. As you might have inferred, the awarding of the Randa and Sharif Nasser Book Prize on Religion and the World would not have been possible without the generosity of Randa and Sharif Nasser. I refer certainly to their generosity in funding this multi-day event at a level that made it possible to host the retreat and this symposium, thereby enabling us to achieve our goal of beginning new friendships and renewing old ones, and thereby building a community of common purpose and shared experience and knowledge. But I also mean their intellectual generosity, their curiosity, their willingness to join us all in learning new things and opening our minds and hearts to experiences far from our own. Even from our few occasions thus far to chat, I can tell that Sharif loves challenges, solving puzzles, and finding a better way, whatever or wherever its sources. Sand Talk has given all of us the opportunity to practice this virtue of intellectual and moral openness. Please join me in acknowledging and thanking Sharif and Rhonda. And now I come finally, but not least, to the remarkable Rafat and Zareen Ansari. Rafat is still here, I hope. Where is he? Has he left? Good, we can talk about him while he's not here. What to say in praise of these lovely people that has not already been said? Here in Michiana, the name Google will tell you, for a region of northern Indiana and southwest Michigan centered on the city of South Bend in Indiana, here in Michiana, Rafat and Zareen are, well, legendary for their civic leadership and service. If you think I'm exaggerating, I refer you to a local PBS documentary film which aired last week and is still available for viewing, entitled Legends of Michiana, Rafat and Zareen Ansari, Gifted Hands. I am not trying to embarrass Rafat and Zareen, but the film makes it quite clear that this couple, both physicians, he a prominent and deeply respected oncologist, and she, mother of a child diagnosed with autism, who left her practice to devote her time and expertise to establishing the Sonia Ansari Center for Autism here in South Bend, are more than worthy subjects for an hour-long account of their extraordinary contribution to the health, well-being, and education of our local community, and indeed of the world. May I confess that while the entire documentary is fascinating and inspiring, some of us in this room especially enjoyed and host repeated screenings of the significant part of the film devoted to the origins and mission of the Ansari Institute for Global Engagement with Religion. It makes clear that Rafat and Zareen understand the simple but profound truth that the wisdom necessary to repair and heal the world is found not in any one religious or secular way of knowing alone, but in many, and that responsible and responsive citizens of the planet do well to explore and become spiritually enriched by all of the sources of truth and imitation. Who am I to say this, but we are very proud and honored to be friends of the Ansari family and to have their support for this ongoing adventure in exploring dimensions of religion and spirituality. Thanks to all of you for being here. Have a good evening.